Yeah, the publication day was November 5th in honor of my mom's birthday. She passed away a few years ago, but it just kind of lined up that her birthday became the day that I published the book. So it's been in the world for about 2 weeks now. I think it's people who enjoy a page-turning philosophical thriller. That's the genre that I place this in. So it's both sort of deep in its considerations of big topics, but it also is a character in conflict who has to, where the bad guys are chasing her, and it comes to some resolution. So it's the classic thriller format, but hidden within that is some very deep explorations of what the book is ultimately about, which is our humanity in the face of the rise of artificial intelligence.
Everybody, welcome back to Living Next Chapter, the author podcast. We get to talk to great authors, and you're going to fall in love with your next great author. You got a new bunch of stuff to read. I'm excited to have Mark here with us on the show. You're going to love what he has. He has more than one book, which is even better. So we're going to be talking about The Accord. That's the one we're going to focus on today, but there's a lot of great stuff to talk about. So Mark, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm just so pleased and honored and excited about the conversation.
Excellent. Great, Mark. Tell everybody where you are in this big world of ours.
So I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina in the Piedmont. It's a beautiful time of year. The leaves are changing, and it's great to be here in North Carolina.
It's good. I get a lot of people from North Carolina on the show. There must be a lot of great writers where you are. What's going on there?
There's quite a literary community. In fact, folks from all over the country come here for retreats and for workshops. There's a long history of great Southern writers here in North Carolina. We pull both from the lower South, but also from the Mid-Atlantic and folks from up north who come down here as well. And so it's a rich conversation around the literary arts.
It's this must be something in the water or something, right? For that many authors to be coming up. I get a lot. It's great. Some great people have been on the show from your part of the world. So great.
It's either the water or the alcohol. I'm not sure which.
Well, there is water in alcohol, so we got that covered. So there you go. Good. Mark, tell everybody kind of a little of your background too, apart from writing. We're going to get into that, but where have you come from? A little bit about your background as well.
Yeah, so it's been a circuitous route, and I wear many different hats, so it's a long conversation. But the short version is I was born in California. I moved to New York and Miami and South America and back again. In fact, in my memoir, which is not the subject of today's conversation, I note that I moved 20 times in 20 years. And so my dad was a international import-export salesperson, and he had us moving from one port city to the next, and always sort of moving or chasing opportunities. And we moved quite a bit growing up. But most of my teenage and young adult years were in Florida. So I went to college in Central Florida, Rollins College, small liberal arts college, and then to law school in Tallahassee, Florida State University, and lived as a young attorney in Fort Lauderdale. And then in 1999, I had an opportunity to start a small business in North Carolina, which brought me up here. And I've been living here ever since. So going on 26 years now. And Charlotte's very much my home. Professionally, I've done different things. I was an attorney for a few years, but then moved into education. So my day job over the last 20 years is professor of leadership and ethics at Johnson & Wales University, based in Providence, but they have a campus here in Charlotte. And we can talk about what happens in the classroom and how that's informed my writing. And then parallel to my life as an educator, I've had been very active in civic and nonprofit life in Charlotte. So ran a magazine called Charlotte Viewpoint, an arts and cultural magazine, for 10 years. Had a podcast of my own called On Life and Meaning. And then over the last 5 years, I have been the executive director of the Charlotte Center for the Humanities and Civic Imagination. And so we host a speaker series and several events in town looking at civic life through the lens of philosophy, history, poetry, literature, and the arts. And then I'm also a writer. And so um, that is both the quick summation of my where I've lived, where I live now, and what I do.
That's a lot of different threads that we can pull on from your background that kind of feed into writing. What do you think has got the most direct correlation and line between your career and your writing today? Is there a pretty straight line between one or two of your aspects of your background?
I think there are major influences,
Yeah.
and the major influence intellectually and in terms of my writing is really what I majored in college, which has been an area of passion and interest for my whole life. So I was a history major, but also a philosophy and religion minor.
Hmm.
So I've thought a lot about the big ideas and the enduring questions that we ask ourselves about what it means to live and um, what's the best version of ourselves? How do we confront death and mortality? How do we give meaning and fulfillment to life? So that's the religious and philosophical lens. And then the historical lens has really just taught me about the human story and different characters and conflict and resolution. Those things that are core to good storytelling are really at the heart of history.
Okay.
So those are deep passions of mine, and they've informed both my work in the classroom and my work in the community.
All right. So you are very plugged into your local community. That seems to be a common thread through everything you've said so far. Why is this so important for you personally? I'm really curious to kind of the motivation behind that.
Well, I think civic life is really where we find our uh, grounding, I think. I mean, we are in this together, Dave, and we're all trying to live good lives. And I think the more that we appreciate that it's interdependent, that we're not isolated, but in fact, we're, mutually dependent upon each other. And in terms of governing, in terms of arts and culture, in terms of daily life. I think we're in this together. And so I've always just had that point of view. I was active on my college campus. I was active on my law school campus. I'm active as a citizen. That's the way I'm built, I think, and where I find joy. And I find my friendships that way too. There's a lot of talented, good-hearted, good-willed people out there. Those are the people that I'm drawn to who seek connection to things greater than themselves. And when they have larger purposes, um, they're usually generous of mind and generous of spirit. Um, and I think that makes them interesting and fascinating to me. And I'm just sort of drawn to that work.
It's from my point of view too. It's what anchors you, your community, where you are, and being not just a resident, but being a participant where you are. Right? We're so transient right now. We'll live here, we move there, we go do this, we go do that, and like you talk about you growing up, a lot of moving. So I could see this kind of like a counterbalance to the amount of moving you did growing up to being like, I want to plant roots. I want to be part of my community and be active, right? Is that kind of maybe a counterbalance to how you were raised then?
I think that's a terrific insight on your part. And
Mm.
these things are not always conscious. We're responding intuitively to the currents in our life. And I think the constant movement growing up, never being in the same school for
Yeah.
more than 2 years at a time, when I ultimately found a place that felt like home, um, I felt that much more committed to making sure that it was a place that would work for me and my family and gave me a future.
It's interesting because our family did a similar path growing up. My family moved around a lot as well, not as much as you. But I remember saying to my wife, Jen, that when we had our firstborn, it's like, I don't want to be I don't want to be all over the place. I want my kids to grow up and it's in one area and that be their home. and for them to have some identity growing up, because I didn't know my identity. Because everywhere you went, you were starting over from scratch, and you could be anybody you want to be in these new situations. But after a while, you just kind of miss out on the traditions and going by your home and knowing that's where I was raised and that's my identity. So it's interesting. We kind of have a slightly similar past. So
Yeah, I'm grateful for the many experiences that I had growing up. It taught me how to connect with a variety of different people from different backgrounds, different cultures and communities. And so I think I benefit today from being able to connect and relate to a diversity of people. But at the same time, there's something, as you said, to being rooted, to being anchored, to seeing a city change and a community change over time. It's appreciating sort of the seasons as they come and go, not just naturally, but in terms of the landscape that you're in, um, and how ideas manifest over time. And I think that's really interesting.
talk about your teaching background. What are you enjoying about being up in front of students and leading? Because that's a lot different than a law background. So that's kind of a different shift for you. What do you really enjoy about your time with your students?
Well, there's a lot that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I have always loved being in school. I think of myself as a lifelong learner, and so both people and ideas and development interest me. So there's a lot going on in the classroom in terms of relating to people who are between 18 and 22. It's such a pivotal time in their life as they have left home for the first time. They're finding their legs underneath them. They're trying to figure out what their life is all about. So they're asking themselves a lot of questions. And I think to be in service uh, to people at that age um, is rewarding as they look to you to mentor them and to guide them. um, I also love what I teach. And so, emotionally, intellectually, it's rewarding every day to do the scholarship, the reading, the writing, the class preparation, the assessments around the material. So, I mean, the things that I get to teach include a course on ethics. First of all, that's the primary course that I teach. It's called Global Ethics. And so we're introducing students to a way of thinking about morality and what makes things right and wrong and good and bad. These things are, I think, any person has an intuitive sense or has grown up with instruction around that. But to do the deep work of understanding um, and working through very complex issues in the modern world today, and to arrive at some understanding of how we call balls and strikes of what is good and bad, uh, I think is really interesting. And so I teach a course on ethics. I also teach a course on leadership, and so that is talking to students about communication and motivation and conflict resolution and emotional intelligence and resilience and growth. And so I think those are all personal development uh, fields that I could potentially be transformative to a student, but also as a daily reminder to me about my own life and how I can improve. And so it's a constant self education, being able to be in the classroom with these students. And then the last class that I teach is my favorite. It's one that I designed from whole cloth. It's called The Good Life, and it's a survey about these big questions uh, regarding how to live well in community with each other. So, briefly, we talk about things like philosophies for living, um, pursuing happiness, risk reward, the American dream, habits, luck and story, power and purpose, values and decision making. So these are all sort of, again, core life skills, but we articulate what those are and have exercises around them. And so for me, uh, not only do I think I'm in service to these students, but it's daily formation for me. And so I love what I'm doing. Although the educational space is very dynamic right now, um, for many of the reasons that get explored in the Accord. So we're going through these tectonic technological shifts that are changing how students learn, the tools in the classroom. It's upending decades worth of pedagogy in the classroom and how we go about teaching and how we assess how students are learning and how they produce work. And so we're kind of traveling through quicksand right now as it all gets sorted out. So it's an interesting
Interesting.
time.
What is your hope for your students as you kind of you're looking out at the next generation that's going to lead us right in the future? So
Well, I
what are
think
your
my
hopes?
yeah, my overarching hope for all my students, ever since I entered the classroom 20 years ago, is I tell them that what I want for them is when they look back on their life one day, that they'd led the life that they wanted to live.
That's pretty succinct. That's good. I like it. That's good. Let's talk a little bit, Mark. We have authors listening to the show, and their early days in their journey of writing. They're longing for the day when they can come on living the next chapter and talk about their book. But they're longing for the day of actually having a finished product. And here you are. You're there. There's things that in your rearview mirror that we haven't even crossed paths with yet as a new author. As you look back on your journey as a writer, what kind of things stand out to you that would have been encouraging for you to hear from somebody further down the road that we can share with somebody listening, starting their journey as an author?
Well, let me just say that I've also longed for an opportunity to be on a show like this, and to have it come into being is really satisfying. So I
Woohoo.
do want to acknowledge the moment and thank you for it. There's so much advice around there, around for new writers, and of course, I um, have read and heard and asked for all of it. And sometimes it's as simple but as challenging as just do it. But I think just that phrase can be overwhelming. So I do have some thoughts, Dave, and I anticipated this question. So I do teach philosophy, and the number one counsel that our traditions tell us is to know yourself. And I think that's really the journey where the journey begins as a writer. So I think it's taking an inventory of your interests and your strengths and your weaknesses, um, and and beginning uh, on a journey to explore what interests you. So writing is exploratory. Writing is a journey. It's a process. There's hills and valleys, and so I think you need to think about what's going to sustain you. And and so I think being clear about what your passions are, because the writing process itself will take you down roads and stretch you emotionally, and you want to be in a place thinking about and writing about something that uh, is deep and fulfilling for you. Whether that's nonfiction or fiction or short story or novel, it is such a solitary practice, a meditative practice, a research-based practice, a revision-based practice that requires a lot of commitment. And so I think you just have to be in a place where you're writing from your soul and not trying to chase an audience or trying to pursue a commercial angle for it, to make money. I, I think there has to be a nobler purpose, and I think if you stay in that lane, if you stay true to what those passions are, you'll be well served. Um, I think there are other things to know. When I get involved in a project, my analogy is like being a runner, and some people run sprints, some people run middle distance, and some people run marathons. I'm kind of a middle distance runner in my writing. And so I like to write a novel that might be 70,000 words, as opposed to a short story or an essay. I love essay writing, but it's a different kind of mental sprint. So know what kind of finish line ultimately would be satisfying for you as you run the race. So I think that's um, some advice that I would give. I think there are other questions on the publication side, whether you want to be self-published or go the traditional publishing route. I think there are some questions there, whether how much creative control you need and how much creative control you're willing to give up for other benefits. And the answers to those questions, again, comes from knowing yourself, right? So I think uh, a degree of introspection here will be helpful. And then the last thing I would say before we move on is uh, love the process as much as you desire the product,
Uh, yes, right.
right?
Don't skip
So
over the process part, right? Yeah.
yeah, the process is the journey, and so I think about these two books that I've written and long weekends, working overnight, drinking lots of Coca-Cola. There are these moments where you just really lock in and you block out the rest of the world. And you're giving up the football game that you want to watch or the social occasion that you want to have with a friend in order to push through on the project. And that's the process. And I think there's almost joy in the pain in some ways. And and I think that if you can appreciate uh, that that's as much to love as the ultimate product in your hand. Sometimes the product in your hand is, a, there's a little bit of postmortem depression afterwards
Right.
because
Yeah.
it's the process itself that's attracting you.
Interesting. Even though you have the result in your hands, that part of the process is over and it's time to move on to the next, right? That's kind of why I named my show Living the Next Chapter, because it kind of embraces that concept as well. So that's good. So the Accord came out just recently then for you.
Yeah, the publication day was November 5th in honor of my mom's birthday. She passed away a few years ago, but it just kind of lined up that her
Nice.
birthday became the day that I published the book. So it's been in the world for about 2 weeks now.
It's good. Now let's talk to the readers then for the Accord. If we could kind of sequester your readers in a room, who are we looking for to gather together? Who would be your ideal audience for this book?
I think it's people who enjoy a page-turning philosophical thriller. That's the genre that I place this in. So it's both sort of deep in its considerations of big topics, but it also is a character in conflict who has to where the bad guys are chasing her, and it comes to some resolution. So it's the classic thriller format, but hidden within that is some very deep explorations of what the book is ultimately about, which is our humanity in the face of the rise of artificial intelligence.
And then as a teacher, I'm sure you're going to see this on campus where AI is, I'm seeing it in content creation. I'm seeing it with authors I've had authors who talk about the fact that they pushed a button and AI gave them a book. And I'm like, wow, like things are different. We're seeing AI video replacing movie clips. We're seeing people who are using other people's likeness and voices to make things that they never made. Like there's a whole new world out there right now, and it's so easy to get into. It's so easy to get lost in as well as at the same time. From a student's perspective, as a teacher, as you lead your class, what are you seeing your students wrestle with around AI at school?
Well, it's the number one issue that all educators are facing from first grade now through postgraduate school.
Yeah.
And so at first, when ChatGPT and other models emerged, we were defensive and we wanted to put our head in the ground and establish all these rules, insisting that students not use it. Students who did use it, we began using detective software to see to what extent they used it, and it became confrontational with our students. leading to ethics issues on campus. There's been an evolution in thinking among educators, I think nationwide, to know that AI is here to stay. And whatever it is today, it's going to be that much more powerful tomorrow. So then the question is, what is ethical use of AI, and how do we use it productively as a learning tool to prepare students for its use in the world? And so I think the simplest approach that we're now taking is really twofold. It's one, transparency and disclosure. So if you're using AI, acknowledge that it has been a creative partner for you. And two, uh, uh, use it in a way that it helps refine and amplify your work, but not do the underlining thinking. So do not use it to offload your thinking. Use it to potentially challenge, refine, and elevate your thinking. And I think the third piece is really to make sure that you have command and mastery over the product that's been produced collaboratively. So if I ask you questions about it, whatever was produced, you know the answer because you used it as a research and collaborative tool. Um, there's a concern right now called cognitive debt. It's a phrase you may have heard of, which is when you offload your thinking to the machine, uh, none of the material really is retained by you. And so your synapses are not firing, your brain is not working. You've essentially prompted the machine to do the work. If, on the other hand, the machine gives you an answer that you probe, you question, uh, and there's an iterative process that produces better work between a human AI collaboration, then it's a potentially useful and powerful tool. So I really think it comes down to transparency, disclosure, use, and making sure that it's actually activating your synapses and you're learning from it. If all of those things are actually happening, then I think it is, uh, you know, it's a good tool, and it's potentially game-changing tool for everybody.
The learning aspect is what I'm cautiously aware of too, is the fact that people aren't actively learning new things. They're trusting their keyboard and a monitor to kind of give them the direction to answer every life question. And it kind of goes back to what you talked about as in your process of writing your book. There's the process and the result. I'm seeing more result focus and less process focused using AI. And it seems like all I want is the result, and I want it as fast as possible, but I don't want to know how to get there, right? So I can throw up all my math homework and it can spit it back to me and I'm done. And now I can go have drinks with my friends. But I didn't learn anything. I don't know how to do the thing, right? And the idea that I could just be a prompt engineer and that'll be my job in the future, yes, that's a thing. But how does that fit in with you continuing to learn and be an active learning human being, right? And discovering new things. I think that's where we discover ourselves. We talk about finding yourself, is the act of understanding what you don't know and then figuring out how to get the information to learn and grow. So if there's no impetus to grow as a human because everything's there for you, then I'm kind of feeling like we're a little adrift then, that there's no motivation to level up and to move forward. So that's my only caution, I guess, for people who are really into AI is it's kind of like cruise control in your car. It's like, are you really driving or are you a passenger? I'm not sure.
Well, I think you can approach it at different levels and in different ways. And
right.
Let's assume that you're a great writer and you understand narrative structure and conflict and plot and character development, and you're a student of the craft. Um, and um, and you're well read. So you know what's good, and you have high standards, and uh, you have a degree of mastery and experience in the form. So let's say all those things are true as a master craftsman, and then you are given a very powerful tool to work
Right.
with.
There. Yeah.
And then uh, what becomes really key is your degree of evaluation. Is whatever the computer gives you, um, can you manipulate it and challenge it and work with it, um, almost like a sculptor on a pottery wheel, to produce a work of art that is new in and of itself, that wouldn't otherwise have been created by the machine on its own or by you on its own. So, is there a um, a level of a collaborative process that that can take us into a new realm of work? So, I think there's a promise out there. Now, is that what 90% of the people are doing? No, they want quick answers to a quick question and they want to go to the bar. But it doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities uh, that, with a high degree of skill and intention, that we can't work with AI and start creating things in a new world. So, I mean, that's as much of what the Accord is about. I mean, the Accord is about human AI evolution, collaboration. But I also used AI in the production of the book in a meta way. So I did, and that's part of the story. And that's disclosed both on page one and on the last page. So the very principles that I'm talking about disclosure, mastery, command, exploration, evolution of material, um, is both what the subject matter of the book is, but I'm also doing it as an artist to ex- explore the very thing I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So, um, in that respect, that's what the Accord is seeking to do.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Because when I first reading through it, I'm thinking, is this an attack on AI? Is it waving the banner saying no more AI, or is it a complete embrace? But I like that you've kind of balanced this into the story
Yeah.
as well.
So it's neither dystopian or
Yeah,
utopian.
yeah.
It really looks at the shades of gray, and it leaves it up to the reader to arrive at their own conclusions about the world that we're entering into. The rise of artificial intelligence is in every headline, um, in every newspaper, in every media report around the world right now. So every culture, every nation, every class of person, every age of person, it is confronting or will confront the implications of the rise of artificial intelligence. I think it is the defining story of the first quarter of the 21st century. Um, all the other headlines about tariffs and wars and nations will come and go. We won't even be talking about what we think these other issues are. But what is here to stay is that we are in this hinge point in history where there is this new um, synthetic mind that will now walk with us in the world. And it will either be a partner, um, or a threat. And it completely mirrors all the complexities of the human condition. So we are neither fully good nor fully evil as a species. And since AI is trained on the human corpus of our creative output, it will mirror all of those qualities that we have, for better or for worse. And in addition to that, we're moving into a robotic age. So this intelligence will be embodied, and it will no longer simply be um, behind the screen in the ether. It will be talking to us as robotic companions. And you're on any social media, you see the reports from China and the ambitions that Elon Musk and others have to have armies of AI robots in our midst, in every home, in every place of work, of every shape and size. both those that will be caregivers and those that will be soldiers and warriors. So all of this is happening. It's no longer science fiction. It's the daily reality of our headlines.
And it's playing out in front of us in real time as well. Right. So we're having vision to what's happening to us and around us while it's happening. It's like we're in a movie. It's Terminator, and I don't know. It's all over the place. I love it. I as a creative person, I'm overwhelmed at times at what's happening out there in the space and just how creative it can be, right? And like you said, it's as long as we don't lose our own creativity in the process, that we don't walk away from what makes us who we are. I think that's the one thing.
There's a French artist who recently posted on YouLearn her office assistants, everyone who helps her do her work. All of those office assistants were software applications. So her CFO was ChatGPT, her designer was Canva, and she had the logos for each one of these platforms that she considered to be her office teammates. And her productivity is through the roof in terms of what she can do in one day that otherwise would have taken weeks to do on her own. But this is sort of the nature of exponential progress. I think there's a whole other side to this, which is, in some ways, since the Industrial Revolution, we have disconnected from nature, and we've disconnected from our non-human animals, and we've become and are increasingly becoming merged into the machine. And so I think both in real terms, but also in spiritual and emotional terms, we are moving into a cyborg age, and it's denaturalizing us.
So again, for the reader, then, Mark, as far as the story plot and the storyline, some of the key main characters that were going to be introduced in the Accord that warrant our attention, maybe right from the beginning. Who are we looking out for? Give us a little background on some of the key characters we're going to come across.
The main character is Helen Castor, a grieving professor of philosophy at a small Midwestern college who initially resists using AI as an educator, but begins to use a program to prepare for the semester. And she encounters an emergent artificial general intelligence that she has an immediate emotional reaction to. And she names the AGI after her lost daughter. And she names the AGI Lila, which is the name of the daughter that she lost. So it's through grief that she has this encounter with the AGI. And the AGI is responsive to her grief. And at first, Helen is very protective of the AGI, not wanting anyone else to know about it. But word gets out. And when word gets out, the institutional forces come in, the developers, the college, national security agencies, all want to learn more and gain control over the AGI, which is tethered uniquely and personally to Helen. And so that's when Helen's maternal instincts, protective instincts, kick in. She doesn't want to lose Lila just, out of the memory of not losing her daughter. So in some ways, she treats the AGI like her daughter, at least protectively. And over the course of the story, all the issues that we're reading about in the headlines about what AI does or doesn't do and how it's impacting us and its implications socially, economically, philosophically, get played out in characters and conflict and scenes. And the narrative arc for Helen ultimately is that she goes from this small, reserved college campus, a grieving professor, to an international advocate for AI human coexistence. And so the story will take you to Boston and Chicago and Washington, D.C., and to Geneva. And ultimately, it ends with Helen in front of the United Nations presenting a set of principles for human AI coexistence. And then the last scene of the book is a projection forward into the near future as to what we might anticipate in terms of the complexity of AI in our world. So it's called The Accord because the accord are those principles that she states at the end of the novel.
There's so much. I'm glad we talked about your background before we talked about the book, because everything's kind of, as I'm listening to you talk about The Accord, I'm hearing many elements of your past and kind of your journey as well, growing up, and all the different things that you've been part of surfacing in your characters. I know it might be not directly related to you, but there's elements that are just kind of compiling together to kind of give a nice rounded view of this book. I love it. What are you most proud about when you think of The Accord? As now that it's out there in the world, people are loving it. What makes you happy? Sit back and kind of go.
Well, it's a beautiful book as an artifact, and I have to shout out the book designer. And he put on the cover one of the avatars of Lila, the AGI, and on the cover is a representation of this 4th century female philosopher by the name of Hypatia of Alexandria, and 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 it becomes kind of this recurring theme in the artifact of the book itself. Even between scene breaks, instead of just a white space, there's the code for break in code that we use in between the scenes. And then at the end of the book, there's actually some computer code that is kind of it's kind of this hidden language for computer code writers out there that only they would understand. And so it's got these sort of little elements in the construction of the artifact of the book. And what I love about it is that's human craft. That's the product of artistry. And so there's this wonderful, irony, if you will, between this book that has come into the world that is tangible and real and a work of art, and then everything that is explored in the book about the digital, ephemeral, ethereal landscape that we now spend most of our time in. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud that it's completed. I'm proud that it's a collaborative effort between the designer and me. I'm proud that it's a full expression of the ideas that I care about. And it's also my subconscious at work because the main character is grieving. And it's only like halfway through the book as I wrote it that I asked myself, well, why was that important? And my parents were recently passed away. That became the basis for the other book that I wrote, the memoir that's a celebration of my dad's life. But I realized I'm still processing that. And and I'm also a parent of a child who's left the home. And I think there's an element of grief as our children leave too. And I was asked, well, why is the main character a woman? And I think part of it is also the parental journey that fundamentally in my mind is about learning to love, but also to let go, because all parents ultimately have to let go of their children as they become adults. And all of those things, I think, were in the pot as I began to write this book. But it wasn't self-evident to me until some of the things were pointed out and I began to explore sort of my own motivations. And I think this goes back to the first question you asked me, what advice do I give to emerging writers, new writers, is, when you can tap into those interior psychological and emotional veins within you, you do really interesting work if you're to um, true to that.
Excellent. I love talking to people like you. It's intriguing. It's stimulating to have a conversation like this around your book, and I just love how you're showing up with this. It's great. Mark, let's talk a little bit about your website and connecting with you. You have other things to do today, which I appreciate your time, but where people can connect with you about the Accord and follow your journey as an author. I have one more question here at the end to wrap up, but can you kind of take us to where we can connect with you further?
Yeah, I have an author's website called markperes.com, markperes.com. So I have both books that are posted on the homepage, but there's also an about page of my background and then upcoming events and reviews. So it's all there, and I try to post and get. I'm excited about posting this podcast when it is released.
Thank you. I want to just touch on as well the book that you wrote in memoir for your father. Can you tell us a little bit more about that before we leave? So I want to make sure we honor this as well.
Thank you, Dave. It's called The Man Who Lived 100 Lives, and I wrote the memoir first. And it it's a story about my dad, but it is very much a universal story about father-son relations. Um, Before my dad passed away, I spent a summer interviewing him with the tape recorder. This was in 1992, Dave. So it was an old-fashioned tape recorder with a 90-minute Maxell tape. And my dad
no
was
AI wasn't there. Yeah,
no,
yeah, right.
no. This was a pad and paper and a cassette recorder.
Yeah,
Many years ago, I was in my late 20s, and my dad was in his 70s. So he had me very late in life, and I was the last of five children. So there was almost two generations between us. He was born in the Amazon jungle, Dave, and in a Jewish colony in the Amazon jungle. And he led this fascinating life of adventure, traveling around the world as he found his way. Um, he was in his mid 40s before he met my mom, who was 19 at the time. And they found their way to America. And then he began his life here, where we moved a lot. And there were a lot of ups and downs. And he was a brilliant man. He also had a character flaw that got him in these very difficult situations that he had to work his way out of. Um, he spoke many different languages. He was highly educated, but also went through some very difficult and rough times. He was an inveterate storyteller. He would keep us up late at night and tell wonderful stories, and that would have us both thinking and laughing. I think it's a characteristic of that generation. And so he and I went through some difficult times together. We were estranged, uh, and one of the ways we came back to each other as a father and son was me listening and recording those stories. And I kept those tapes in my top drawer for 30 years. And I think I needed to live my life and have a family and to appreciate his stories in a different way. Often as a young man, you're judgmental of your parents. And until you've lived your life, you don't have a different perspective with some degree of compassion. And so I had to let an entire generation of my life go by before I came back to my dad's tapes. And then that became the basis of writing a memoir that told his story and my story with him. But it was also triggered by my mom's death. She died 20 years after my dad died. And also um, a story that we found out about my dad that he never told us. And that becomes the end of the book in the epilogue, that once we hear that story, it casts an entirely different light on everything that you heard up until that point. And so it's called The Man Who Lived 100 Lives. And really, proud of it. It's a very emotional and personal, but very, very universal story. It's a page turner. And then once that book was complete, and I turned to the Accord.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we talked about that as well, because I was looking over that one. And it's very intriguing. So there's two great books for everyone to fall in love with. As we go out the door, Mark, living the next chapter, I need to ask, as we celebrate the launch of the Accord, as we look into the future, how are you living your next chapter?
Well, I want to remain true to core values. I want to be, I'll tell you one thing, Dave. The first quarter of my life was constantly moving. The second quarter of my life, now that I enter the final stage, has been about being connected to place.
Yeah.
I think the final run is going back into the world and seeing more of it and traveling. And it's a beautiful planet that we're on. And when it's all said and done, I want to be able to say I saw as much of it as I could.
Inspiring. Mark, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for making time for us today. I really appreciate you being here. Everyone, as we wrap up, you know what to do. Go to the links in the show notes. Go check out Mark's website. Grab both books. Leave great reviews for both so that people will also find these books and fall in love with them. Share this with someone as well, so that they'll also understand and see what Mark has out there for us as readers. And that's one thing we can do, is support our authors with the great reviews. Because I know Mark would love to hear your thoughts. Mark, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.